Today is one more chance for the NCAA to screw over Trinidad Chambliss, and everybody, and I mean everybody, thinks they will.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it's the number one sports podcast network in America. That is all because of fans like you taking in shows like this. Thank you very much for that. On today's show, we're going to break down why the Ole Miss quarterback room is going to be the key to surpassing last season's college football playoff. I know, duh, but we'll talk about it anyway. And we'll compare last year's group to what Ole Miss has heading into this season, spotlighting the rival of Deuce Knight and Walker Howard into John David Baker's offense. But first, today represents kind of a critical moment. This is effectively the NCAA's final opportunity to do the right thing and grant Trinidad Chambliss a waiver before his situation moves into the legal system. The window to handle this correctly is closing fast, and how the NCAA responds will be seen by everybody watching. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, and that is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It is the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bet if that bet wins. So today's the day. We've heard through the grapevine and many different sources that Trinidad Chambliss's appeal will be heard today. And this is the last opportunity for the NCAA to get this right. Make no mistake about this. This isn't a Diego Pavia type situation. This isn't a Joey Aguiar situation. You saw him go into the legal system yesterday where they're trying to mark out a year of eligibility to move on. This is about the difference between D2 standards and D1 standards and how an injury and everything is reported and how it has to be to get the medical red shirt through. In 2024, you can go back, it's on YouTube. It's the Ferris State National Championship game against, I think, Valdosta or somebody like that, to where they're giving a rundown of Trinidad Chambliss's eligibility and talking about a medical red shirt like it is a foregone conclusion. This was in 2024. This is before he ever got to Ole Miss. They were planning on filing for that in D2, and they would have gotten it almost instantly, almost a rubber stamp at that point. But him moving to D1 changed the standards needed for a team to qualify for the medical red shirt. So what you have here is bureaucracy interrupting everything and affecting everything. If he would have been eligible for a medical hardship red shirt as D2's quarterback at Ferris State for 2026, he would have been eligible this year in D1 as well. But the bureaucracy, they're not talking. And what this basically revolves around is the fact that there aren't like up-to-date notes. The NCAA gives smaller universities a little bit of leeway on how they document stuff because they don't have the money that is floating around at the Power 5 level. They expect the Power 5 schools to be able to do that because they have the money to handle it and the systems around to make it happen. Going from Ferris State to Ole Miss, that caused the bureaucracy to get in the way. Tennessee had a baseball player go through a very similar situation to where he went down to the University of Tampa, Division II school, transferred to Tennessee, could not get eligible because of this mess. So that's what you're dealing with here. This isn't a Diego Pavia. This isn't a situation to where anybody doubts that he was hurt. This is a situation to where bureaucracy is getting in the way. And the NCAA has one more chance today to get this right before, as Tom Mars told me, unless the NCAA has an irresistible urge to stick their face in the fan blade again, they will grant this waiver. That is how much Ole Miss and everybody thinks this is a slam dunk should it go into the legal system. But the NCAA is going to play their bureaucratic games, and they're going to always have a target on Ole Miss. They love screwing Ole Miss. It is one of their favorite things. Basically, what they have made a history of doing to Ole Miss is like, hey, if you cooperate, we'll go easy on you and everything. You cooperate, and then they drop the hammer on you anyway. The example in my mind is in 1994 when they got absolutely just filleted with the second worst sanctions other than SMU, even though they cooperated. They fired Billy Brewer. They did what they thought needed to be done. In 2015, after their last Sugar Bowl win, by the way, the NCAA came in and said, hey, Hugh Freeze, you're kind of doing crazy. I mean, it's not bad, but we got you here. And then Hugh Freeze decided to fight. The compliance tweet went out there. The NCAA is like, hey, if you guys just cooperate, this is going to go away. And then for $10,000, Ole Miss ended up with a 2-year bowl ban. See what I mean? See the pattern happening right now? The NCAA likes to take advantage of Ole Miss. Think of it like this. I think it was Jerry Tarkanian back in the day, some coach back in the day that said that Kentucky ticked off the NCAA so bad, Cleveland State had to go on another year of probation. And what they're looking for in this whole eligibility situation is for a school to be a fall guy, essentially. And the fact that people are just suing now and the NCAA in state court does not have a good record, it kind of overshadows it. But the NCAA is still doing what they've always done. And that is protecting the big brands, letting the little brands fry. And the mid brands, we'll see exactly what's going on. And Ole Miss has the second smallest fan base in the Southeastern Conference, which is still a pretty large fan base. And I mean, I'm not saying it's small, but when you compare it to Michigan, when you compare it to Alabama, when you compare it to Georgia, all of those, it can dwarf it a little bit. And the NCAA takes advantage of the fact that you can punish somebody that will not be loud. Well, the difference this time, NCAA, Ole Miss is going to be loud. We're going to do whatever Ole Miss can do to prevent a screwing from happening, because the historical facts are there. And using Trinidad for this situation in this bureaucratic mess that's not even a real case, he's only played 3 years of college football at this point. Using bureaucratic mess to prove a point makes you look awful. And yes, I get that there's professional basketball players all over the place. That's not Trinidad's fault. Going from D2 to D1, that's not his fault. All of this other eligibility mess that you made, not his fault. This should be a slam dunk case. And this is the last chance for the NCAA to get it right. And yes, make no mistake about it, it would be getting it right if you granted another year of eligibility. And look at the bright side, NCAA. You're sitting here trying to get a win wherever you can get it. I understand that. But by clearing Trinidad, you automatically just cleared the Heisman favorite. You automatically just cleared the best quarterback in the country. You automatically just have one of the most marketable personalities attached to your game in the country. And I don't know why the bureaucratic nature of everything is getting in the way of all of this other stuff. Is Ole Miss going to be very good if Trinidad gets cleared? Yes, absolutely. Top 5 level good. At that point, you'll have the best quarterback, the best running back, and the best kicker in the country. Bar none. 3 positions that affect winning. Right there. I understand that you're going to say, well, Ole Miss fans just want this to happen. I think I'd want Trinidad to happen if he was at Oklahoma. This is just one of those do the right things type things. Oklahoma has a defensive lineman. I think he's a defensive lineman, Owen Heineke. He's played 3 years at Oklahoma. He was a walk-on when he came in. But before he transferred in, he played 3 games of lacrosse for Ohio State. And because of that, the NCAA is saying his eligibility is expired. This is a similar type case to me. This is one of those do the right things type steps. But I have no doubts that you're going to take this opportunity on the pills to lay the groundwork for the case that you're going to put out to a legal court in Mississippi on February 12th. I have no doubt that you're going to use this appeal as yet another way to grandstand for this to try and get public sentiment on your side, which is Operation Impossible. Regardless, NCAA, clear Trinidad. This is your last chance before it goes into the legal system and he gets to play anyway. Because this is an open and shut case, and only bureaucracy is the reason that he's not eligible right now. So we'll see exactly how that goes. So coming up next, we're going to look at the quarterback room. It's deeper than it was last year. And the addition of Deuce Knight, along with the return of Walker Howard, is bringing real stability, especially with a potential NCAA curveball looming. We'll talk about that, why that matters, next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. The WNBA has released its 2026 schedule, featuring a 44-game regular season beginning on Friday, May 8th. The league's historic 30th season includes expansion teams Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo, with opening weekend highlights such as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever hosting Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, and a rematch of the 2025 finals between the Aces and the Mercury. In college hoops, South Carolina handed Vanderbilt its first loss of the season with a dominant 103-74 win. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. You already live your team every single day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 per month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or check the link out in the show notes to learn more. If you are an all-access subscriber, we have Mike Huseman putting out stuff on the coaching staff. We've got Dalen Flowers giving reports from Oxford as it's going on. Corey Burton's doing his Coach Corey thing. And you can catch me talking about behind the scenes of every show that is done and other stuff that can pop up on there as well. The all access feature, we're trying to mold it in a way to where it's just different than everything else. You've got all of these sites that do exactly the same thing. We're trying to be a little bit different and provide value that way. So we'll see what's happening there. That's the all access tier on Supercast. So check that out. So this Ole Miss quarterback room is interesting. It genuinely is. You have a quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss that threw for almost 4,000 yards. He is the best quarterback in the country when he gets his waiver, and everybody at Ole Miss is operating as if he's going to get his waiver. One way or another, he's going to be playing college football next year. So whenever you have that, you're operating at that point to where this is kind of a foregone conclusion. But when you look at the quarterback room this year, as opposed to the quarterback room last year, even though a lot of the pieces were in place for what eventually became the Ole Miss quarterback room, it still was kind of impressive of how much better this quarterback room is, and with a lot of the same pieces. Now, when you went this time last year into last season, when Austin Simmons was the undisputed number one, He's a 1-1 level talent. You heard me talk about all that. He's a really good football player. But after that, it was AJ Maddox as the backup. After that, it was Malachi Smith, the Oklahoma State transfer coming in, who played a game at Oklahoma State. And that was about it. You had Pierce Clarkson at that time, who ended up transferring out. But that is the extent of what this looked like. This year, you have Trinidad Chambliss, who, like I said, is the best quarterback in the country. When he is back and everything's all done, he is the Heisman favorite. He is everything. When he is on the roster, Ole Miss is a top 5 level team. Period. End of story. But second, you have Deuce Knight, the transfer that came in from Auburn. He's from Lucedale, Mississippi. He is half brothers with Ty Freifogel as well. That's an interesting fact as far as the athleticism in that family. He ran for 170 yards in his one start last year for Auburn, threw for about 200, as a true freshman. To put that in perspective, everybody talks about that one drive that Austin Simmons had against Georgia and how excited that got everybody. Imagine putting together a whole game to where you have over about 400 yards of total offense and 6 touchdowns for the game. So obviously you have somebody that has a good bit of experience coming in. You still have the Malachi Smith, but Walker Howard came back, who he just genuinely likes Ole Miss. And from what I can tell, I don't know exactly what happened, but some kind of a bad breakup or whatever happened, and Walker Howard ended up transferring out to get away from the situation back in Oxford. And as soon as that cleared out, Walker came back. Walker Howard knows this offense. He knows the tempo. He is the experienced guy in the room to go along with Trinidad Chambliss, and he is also the insurance policy to have the experienced guy in the room if for some reason the Trinidad situation goes crazy. I think that it's going to be Trinidad or Deuce Knight regardless as the starting quarterback this year. But Walker Howard kind of can show you the structure, kind of shows you the system and get you ready to play and do the stuff. The grizzled veteran type player, Walker Howard, can do all of that at a pretty high level, if we're going to be honest. And AJ Maddox, he still has all the talent in the world. He does. You saw him complete one pass to Caleb Cunningham in the Citadel game last year where you're like, yeah, I see it. I see it. So we need to wait and see if the light comes on, because if the light comes on, he's going to push Deuce. Remember, he was a 4-star coming out of Oak Grove High School, so he has talent. He has real talent. But when you look at Ole Miss's quarterback room, first of all, you have the no-star, essentially, that is the best quarterback in the entire country on the roster, okay? No star. But backed up by a 5-star, Elite 11 quarterback in Deuce Knight, backed up by a 5-star Walker Howard, Elite 11 quarterback as well. You have AJ Maddox, a 4-star quarterback as well. This roster is just loaded, y'all. It's amazing to see the talent profile that this roster has gotten to over the last 15 years. Honestly, it started back with the Hugh Freeze thing. Whenever the 2-10 season, the Houston Nut thing happened and they brought Hugh Freeze in, that is when the talent profile started to shift. And honestly, actually, I'll take that back. I think it was in 2010 when you ended up with Dante Moncrief and Nick Braslin and all those guys at wide receiver. That was kind of when it started to shift. And Jeff Scott and those guys. So this roster right now is amongst the most talented Ole Miss has ever had. 2024 was still more, essentially, because you had a senior quarterback at that point, which you will have with Trinidad Chambliss, but you had Walter Nolan and all of these big players, Princely and Monmielen. There were some no-doubters in the transfer portal. This year's a little bit different because there's a little bit more homegrown that is thrown in, a lot more retention, but Ole Miss did do an excellent job in the transfer portal as well. Anyway, in our final segment, the quarterback room is going to be the key to surpassing last year's playoff run. Yes, I know. Is really going out on a limb saying that. But That's exactly why so many are rooting for a screw job by the NCAA. This feels like the number one way to halt Ole Miss. We'll talk about all of that next. This tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done by a trusted local expert start to finish without the guesswork or stress. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives a real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in, if that TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and go back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. This is the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you are right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everybody has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into play, stats into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. If you win, make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the secret to Ole Miss surpassing last year's playoff run is the quarterback position. And yes, I know whenever you say that, there's a very elementary 2+2 nature to that comment. I get that 100%. But it goes a little bit beyond that in this game and what it means and where Ole Miss sits and how they've built their roster. They built this roster with the full anticipation that Trinidad Chambliss is going to take the first snap for Ole Miss in 2026. Everything was built. If you looked what happened on the defensive side of the ball, everything was there, because if they scored 30 points a game, they want to win every single game. That is the whole goal of what's going on. If Ole Miss scores as much as they did with Trinidad a year ago, they will win the game. When you look at what happened against Miami, they need to be able to win the game. They need to be able to win that game. And I get all the chaos. Ole Miss likely had a better team than Miami, and just the LSU Ole Miss dynamic got Ole Miss off to a slow start into that game. Once Ole Miss got going, they got rolling and they started doing what they did against everybody else. But the defense did not allow for the slow start. You can't count on the offense being 100% on every time that you get on the field. Even with Trinidad, the odds of that happening are minuscule. You're going to have a slow start. You're going to have an off day, and you need to be able to survive that when it happens. So when you look at what Ole Miss did in the transfer portal this year, the number one thing that I noticed, they grabbed a couple of 0 techs or 3 techs and all of that to make the defensive line and encourage rotation of those players so they can withstand a physicality test should it arrive. They recruited players on the back end of the defense that could play man-to-man. They have that type of ability to where you can get after the quarterback and send linebackers. And they got really athletic linebackers to come in that are going to be a problem. When you look at Ole Miss defensively, it's all there. They need the quarterback position to be good this year to take advantage of everything else that's around them. The talent profile at 21 other positions between offense and defense is absolutely off the chart. So you need the best player in college football to take this team from being a very good, ranked 20th level team next season to being a top 5 national championship, SEC championship level contender. This is going to be an interesting year to see how it handles. And we talked about the NCAA, this being the opportunity to do the right thing and just take the W and go fight the wins or go fight the cases that you can win. We said that this wasn't a Diego Pavia thing. We let you know this is a bureaucracy thing. This is a D2 to D1 problem. The fact that Ferris State was going to do the same thing and was talking about it in 2024. And now that it's come out and everything because of the reporting differences is a problem. I genuinely think Ferris State would have just had this rubber stamped. And this all goes down to tonsillitis. And tonsillitis, when kind of chronic before you take it out, can be weeks off the season and ruin a whole season. It affects oxygen intake. And whenever oxygen intake is affected, all of a sudden it's going to be problematic to being a high-level athlete. You're probably not going to get on the field. You're not going to be able to perform at that level. So it's all an open and shut case for Trinidad. And it's important. Like I said, Trinidad being eligible and taking the first step in 26, the difference between Ole Miss being a top 5 national championship contender, SEC championship contender, and being an also ran that is just in the conversation of the playoff. That's the difference. It's 2021 versus 2025 to where, hey, you're 10-2, but you have no shot to make the playoff. That was a 14 playoff. I get that. But last season, it slam dunk in. Home playoff game, whole 9 yards. Unbelievably awesome run. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Thanks for tuning in to today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk about the transfer portal all week. So make sure you subscribe and follow the show to get all the latest updates. We're on all the social channels as well, so check that out. You never miss an episode. The Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you check out A Second Listen and Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Hotty toddy, everybody. We will see you tomorrow on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.